Where do ghosts come from? Like, how do you know if a place or an object is really haunted? I'm author Gwen Alyce Clayton, and today I am going to walk you through the process that I used while I was writing my paranormal fiction books. I was going to do the whole process in one video, but it got to be so long and unwieldy that I decided to break it down into chunks. And today we're going to talk about part one of my inspiration for the Rivervine universe. And that place is the Old Sacramento waterfront. Old Sacramento is a place that I have loved since I was a kid. I remember going there in 6th grade for a field trip to the Railroad Museum, and I just fell in love with the place. I love the historical ambiance. I love the charm, the uniqueness of it. It just has a really good vibe. And over the years, it has become known as a place like most places in Gold Rush, California. It's known for its hauntings and its underground tunnels, and a lot of course, there's going to be a lot of residual emotional energy left over at those places, and maybe there are some ghosts, who knows, but it's a popular place for ghost hunters, and I just think it's very charming. I also love how they have the shops on the bottom floor and then apartments on top. And I actually got to live in an apartment like that on Main Street, Sutter Creek, when I lived in California. And it's just so convenient and charming and unique to be able to just live upstairs from where you shop and where you dine and where you party. It's great. And so something about Old Sacramento is that it is 28 acres and it has more than 125 shops, dining areas, and other businesses along the waterfront. You can get carriage rides, which my daughter and I did this last time I went to visit. There are 53 historic buildings, all along the Sacramento River. Very charming, like I said, and unique. It's a place you're not going to find anywhere else. So I live in Fort Wayne, Indiana now, but I recently had the opportunity to go back to Old Sacramento. Had to go to Reno anyway for my mom and sister's memorial service. So while I was there, my daughter, who lives in Sacramento, she and I played around Old Sacramento for a while and enjoyed the day. I wanted to take her to Fanny Ann's Saloon, which was the inspiration for my Trails Saloon used in the Rivervine trilogy, but they didn't open until 4 o'clock and we got there early in the day. So we went to Finnegan's Irish Pub instead, and we had a great time there.
And if all you have to write on is $100 bill, well, we're flexible and we're not passing out judgments here.
I'd like to read a passage from Zinfandel's grimoire, and this story is written from the ghost's point of view. So it is Zinfandel herself, the ghost, who is speaking. And this scene takes place inside the Trails Saloon, which was inspired by Fanny Ann's in Old Sacramento. This evening, I indulged a bit as I rode with Lily when she delivered herbs and vegetables to her customers. Her last stop is always the dance hall, one of my favorite places in all of Rivervine. I did not actually need a ride to the saloon, but just like I could have conjured my own bottle of whiskey. But I do need to be around people, to absorb their energy, have a barkeep pour me a drink for me, witness lovers dancing, inspire lust among the patrons. I need the game, the companionship, the excitement, and I savor the way whiskey tastes when it has rested in a glass of ice for a few moments. The melted water mellows the flavor ever so slightly, while the frozen crispness brings out the sweetness of the liquor. The trip itself gives Lily and me a chance to catch up on one another's goings-on, all while the spirits of her plants travel to their new homes. Usually, my tagging along is not a burden. I simply wait until we reach our destination, create the illusion of myself as an attractive woman, and wait for men to ask if they can buy me drinks. When Lily is ready to depart, I abandon the apparition and return with her, as my spirit self, to the farm. Tonight was different. Manuel Chavez, the winery's new solicitor, accompanied her, which meant I needed to behave myself. Even though he grew up in the vineyard, the young man has not yet met me in person, so to speak. Decorum necessitated discretion. Lily was clearly agitated during the trip. Throughout the ride, she kept flashing glances at me, afraid I would surely say or do something to upset poor Mr. Chavez. But I stayed on my best behavior, inconspicuous to the average observer. I did not make any noises or allow myself to be seen, although I could not avoid altering the temperature inside the vehicle. As a discarnate vampire, my chi feeds off other forms of energy, ambient heat being one. I have no control over that. Besides, the nature spirits in Lily's herbs like it. The cold air prevents their delicate leaves from wilting. Our trip to the saloon typically involves me offering Lily consolation. But tonight, it was I who needed a friendly shoulder to cry on. Unfortunately, with a good Catholic boy obstructing our privacy, my lament fell on distilled kernels of corn poured by Bobby the barkeep. She always recognizes me and knows to put my drinks on Lily's tab if no one else offers to pick up the charge. "What are you up to tonight, Zinfandel?" she asked, handing me my bourbon on the rocks, as she calls it. This bourbon is some sort of American whiskey that I love so much. It has a deeper, richer flavor than Irish whiskey, with less bitterness than Scotch, and less sweetness than Canadian whiskey. The nose is a perfect mix of buttery vanilla and creamy caramel. "Did you come here with Lily and Manuel?" "Shh," I hushed her. "Manuel does not yet know about me." She leaned across the bar and whispered, "So how did you get here?" "Oh, in the van," I answered quietly. "He did not see me." "Can he see you now? Can anyone else? Or does it look like I'm talking to myself?" "Do not worry. I made myself viewable to the public once I arrived at the dance hall." "Phew, good. So, how are things at She stopped in the middle of her thought to keep our confidentiality. "That, my dear, is the whole reason I am here tonight," I answered, swirling my glass. 4 days ago, I learned that my brother is leaving me, and the heir to the Kamadi vineyard is abdicating her legacy. Bobby looked at me with a gaping mouth and furrowed brow. "I didn't know you had a brother." "He usually keeps to himself. You may have heard him play music with me, though. He plays kobza." With her brow still furrowed, Bobby shook her head, not knowing what a kobza was. "It's an old stringed instrument that looks similar to a lute," I said. The barkeep shook her head again and shrugged her shoulders. "It sounds like a tinny guitar," I explained. She propitiated me by nodding her head and saying, "Oh," even though I could tell she still did not understand. Realizing I needed to move on with my story or risk losing her attention, I told her, "He and I often play duets late at night. I play violin. Our favorite places are either under the orange tree or the property here in a cave at the base of the foothills." Bobby paused for a moment. "Now that you mention it, I think I have heard you two," she said. "I usually work the late shift, and sometimes when I'm on my way home, I hear strange music coming from that direction. I always assumed it was the farm workers, but the music didn't sound Mexican. The barkeep excused herself to go pour a glass of soda water for Manuel and a man named Desmond Taylor, Bobby's employer, the person who owns the dance hall. Lily had just formally introduced the two men in the business office, and they came to the bar to discuss wine purchases with Bobby. While the men were talking, Lily went to the kitchen to discuss menu options with Chef Cheryl, who is in charge of purchasing items for the restaurant inside the dance hall. With no friends left to talk to, my eyes scanned the room for strangers who might buy me drinks or ask me to dance. No one obliged, so I just sat there, swirling my glass as the ice water tempered the fiery kick of the liquor. Lily finally wrapped up her business with the cook and headed back to the carriage. I shook off the illusory disguise and followed her out. Manuel arrived right as Lily opened the door and shot a "be quiet" glance back where I was sitting. I made no sound. Neither did the other two humans. The entire trip home was quiet. Thank you so much for staying with me so far into this video. I greatly appreciate all your support. Please like this video, subscribe to the Rivervine channel, and meet me back here next Tuesday where we will talk about Elk Grove, California.